Hey folks, let me tell you about this lady, a seller who had her home held hostage, and then I'll get into the latest home prices and insights for the city of Toronto for week ending January the 10th, 2024. Many of you have subscribed, yet many of you watch every single week and you haven't subscribed yet. I don't know what you're waiting for. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button. This way you're reminded when these videos come up and you won't miss an episode. So, I'm having a conversation with this lady. She's very upset, very emotional when she's telling me what's happening or has just recently happened with her real estate experience in trying to sell her home. Early in the fall, she put her home up for sale, organized, she did everything, got the realtor, they signed a listing agreement, home went up for sale, there's a few showings. A few months went by though, no offers, no sale. So September, October, it's now 2 months into it. She's not really enjoying the experience with the realtor. Things were awesome beforehand when the listing agreement was being signed, but as time went on, less and less attention was given to her. Calls weren't being returned. Showings are showing up. There was few showings, and the few that did show up, she didn't even know they were, the communication was so bad, she was telling me. And so she decided that she's going to terminate her listing and relist with somebody else. She was going to do more in research this time, now that she's a little bit more experienced in the process. And when she approached the agent to say, hey, take my home off the market, I don't want to work with you anymore, the agent's response was, no problem. I'll take your home off the market as soon as you pay me $3,000, or your home is going to stay listed, or basically we have a contract for another 2 months. And this totally blew her away. She had no idea. She thought she would just make a phone call and say, cancel my listing, I'm going to work with somebody else. And the agent's attitude was, no way, you're going to pay me some of these expenses or all these expenses I incurred. I can't speak to that realtor's expenses, but he was talking to her about photographs and staging and marketing and flyers he put out and his time doing open houses, and he was throwing it all on there saying, pay me for that and I'll terminate immediately, or you're going to be stuck under contract for another 2 months. This really upset her. I totally understand her position there. This would drive me insane also. Right off the bat, I'm thinking, why would a realtor want to work with somebody who doesn't want to work with them anymore? That is already, on top of my head. However, can you imagine just none of this was discussed ahead of time? There was nothing in writing saying, if you terminate this listing early, or in other words, let me backtrack, I'm going to, as the listing agent, when he's discussing the whole listing, I'm going to do photos, I'm going to do staging, I'm going to do this and that and that and that. But if you terminate the listing early, you're going to reimburse me all those costs. None of that was discussed ahead of time. If it was discussed, it should have been put in writing. None of it was. It was just a simple, straightforward listing agreement, price, expiry date, commission. That's what was on the listing agreement. That's it. And now this lady is basically having her home held hostage because she did not want to pay the expenses that this realtor is coming up with that she needs to reimburse. All of a sudden, what a surprise that is. And so for 2 months, her home sat idle. She wasn't allowing showings. The agent did not cancel the listing and let it expire. Nobody wins. Nobody gains anything. It's just a terrible situation. Oh, and she did tell me, the lady, that she called the brokerage complaining about the realtor, and the brokerage stood by that realtor. Like, did anybody have the conversation saying, why do you want to hold a contract for somebody who's not even allowing showings, who doesn't want to work with you anymore? It just went from bad to worse, that situation. There are realtors like that out there. And then there are realtors that would have said, ma'am, sorry you feel this way. What's the problem? How can I fix it? What can I do better if the agent wants to try to hold on to the listing? Give me another chance. What can I do better? I'll improve. I'll do this. I'll do that. Or, I'm sorry you feel that way. Cancel the listing and move on. Let the seller do what they want to do. You as the agent can focus on other things that are more productive. But that didn't happen. And instead, it just builds up this bad situation, bad vibes, just a terrible, terrible situation to be in. That happens. Who you hire matters. I'd love to say that it's just based on somebody's word, and if they say they're going to do this, then they're going to do it. Not everybody's like that, and even if they are, you've all heard this story, get it in writing. If you want to be protected, get it in writing. If you're a realtor and you want to be reimbursed if the listing gets terminated early, tell the clients up front that and put it in writing so everybody signs. If you're the seller and you don't want to pay for certain expenses, get that put in writing, and you and the agent sign so it's clear. This way, we can avoid some of these situations. But man, this seller, totally upset, totally frustrated, and is, in her telling me the story of what happened, she's getting all emotional about it again. And I totally understand her situation. And I'm thinking, these realtors that do these things just give the rest of us such a bad name. There are some phenomenal realtors out there. Your job, if you're looking to buy or sell, is to seek them out, because who you hire matters. If you think this video can help somebody you know, pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. And if you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, up here there's a link to my calendar. In the description there's a link to my calendar. Book a time on that calendar and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. Now, let's get into the numbers. Folks, our lineup has changed. Today we're talking about freehold only for the city of Toronto. Condos will be in tomorrow's show, and it's for January 10th, our first full week of the new year. Let's get right into it. So here's just a quick summary, broken down by week for 3 months of average sold price for detached properties. And I've got a bunch of cities listed here. Brampton, Durham. Durham involves Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby as one area. Toronto is here, then Mississauga, Richmond Hill, Vaughan, and Markham. Again, average sold price for detached properties. Now, usually, if you kind of look back at the other months, this is very typical. The thick red line, those are the Toronto average sold prices for detached properties. It's usually in the middle. Mississauga, Brampton, and Durham, much lower average prices. Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham, higher average prices. Toronto's normally in the middle. Not this week, actually. Toronto has come down. Mississauga has actually got a higher average sold price for detached properties. It's a bit of an anomaly. Doesn't happen often, but it's on this chart for this week for January the 10th. So here's Toronto only, detached semis and towns. You'll see townhouses here. These are freehold townhouses. Previous week, 0 sales, and now we've jumped back up. So let's get started. We've got detached properties for the city of Toronto, broken down by week. I have a whole year on the board here. So for week ending January the 10th, Huge jump in sales over the previous week. We went from 30 sales for week ending January the 3rd to 65 sales, more than double, which is what we expect. Think about it. For week ending January the 3rd, New Year's was in that middle of that week. And we had just before that, Boxing Day, Christmas Day, all sorts of holiday times. So 30 to 65 sales, 5 of those were at $2 million or more, but average sold price has plummeted. We're like at $1,334,000 for the average sold price. So a lot of the lesser expensive homes really in that 65 are the ones being sold. In the middle here, you remember from last week's video, the whole Christmas, New Year stretch, and a week before, a week after, kind of calling it the twilight zone. You can't really take those numbers too serious. So let's forget about these high peak and valleys over the Christmas period. Prior to that, average prices were coming down. And now we're seeing that we're starting off the first full week of the new year way down here at $1,334,000. A snapshot backwards a bit. This time last year, we were going into January, then February with prices climbing up. Let's see what happens this year. Compared to last year, 1,334 is 2% higher than where the average sold price was a year ago. The median price of 1,150 is 6% higher than where the median price was a year ago. Sales, 65 were sold. Last year for the same week, we sold 41. So we're selling more than what we sold last year at this time. And last year was, as far as volume goes, a super, super low year for us for sales. So we're starting off doing more volume than what we did a year ago. Listings, a little bit less. For a lot of areas, actually, listings are way more than what we were listing last year. But for the city of Toronto, for detached, 147 were listed. A year ago for the same week was 159. And months of inventory dropped from the previous week. But remember what I said, that Christmas, New Year's period, don't take those numbers so serious as indicative of what's really going on out there. We're now sitting at 3.1 months of inventory, which is a little bit on the low side compared to where we were middle of November for most of December going into the holiday period. So we're at 3.1 months of inventory. 38 is the average days on market. That's all the city of Toronto. Let's break it down into 9 sections. Now, some of these areas, wow, let's look at Scarborough. 30 sales were done in Scarborough. That's 46% of all the city of Toronto detached properties. 46% were sold in Scarborough. And months of inventory for Scarborough, 1.3. All of Toronto, we said, is 3.1. Scarborough, 1.3. East York, Riverdale, we have 3 months of inventory. High Park, Parkdale, 3.5 months of inventory. Weston, 2.9 months of inventory. There's all sorts of, the city's waking up, it seems, from its holiday, and now the market is starting to get going. We're seeing more listings, but you've got such different experiences in different parts. Wreckdale, Downsview, you got two months of inventory. So it's starting off a little bit competitive, and you could see it in the spike of sales. Buyers have jumped out, they started buying. And this is kind of the sense that you're getting right now from being in the field working with sellers and buyers. It seems that people are getting excited again. Buyers and sellers are getting motivated about this current market. Here's semis. 11 semi-detached properties were sold. 2 of those were at $1.5 million or more. Average sold price shot up to $1,198,000. Now, 11 is not a huge sample, so you're going to get a lot of variations in average sold price. Compared to last year, 1,198 is 2% higher than where we were this time a year ago. The median price is 1.2 million, and that's 20% higher than where we were this time a year ago. 3.6 is the months of inventory for semi-detached properties, which is higher than where we were pre-holiday season. Townhouses, we did 0 the previous week. This week, our first full week, we're starting off with 6 townhouses sold. These are freehold townhouses. None of them sold at $1.5 million or more. And the average sold price is $927. Way low compared to where we've been for the whole year. Compared to last year, $927 is 0.3% lower than where we were this time a year ago. The median price of $910 is 4.1% lower than where we were last year. So a bit of a slow start for townhouses across the city of Toronto. Oh, sorry, went a little too fast. Months of inventory sitting at 3.5 months of inventory. Average days on market for those 6 that sold is 25 days on market. Here's a quick summary of all the months of inventory. Overall, we're sitting in a balanced market. I did include condos just to get a comparison between detached, semis, and towns versus what the condo market is doing in the city of Toronto. I will be talking about condos in detail in tomorrow's report. But basically, overall, we're sitting in a balanced market right now. That's how we're starting off our first full week without any holidays for the city of Toronto. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.